Today we are going to solve quadratic equations by taking the square root. This is for part 2. This is for individual practice. I will do 4 questions on my own, and I will ask you to try 4 questions as well, just to practice what you've learned so far. So I'm going to do the left side. So first we're going to start with, how do we get this x plus 1 squared by itself? So whatever is being squared, I want to get it by itself. So my first step is going to be to move the minus 4 to the other side, to basically get rid of it by doing an inverse operation. So the opposite of subtracting 4 is adding 4 to both sides. Okay. When I add 4 to both sides, I have x plus 1 squared equals 36. So now that I have the term that's squared by itself, I can get rid of the square by doing the inverse, which is taking the square root. And if I take the square root of one side, I also have to take the square root of the other side. So I have x plus 1 equals the square root of 36. Well, 36 is a perfect square. I can take the square root of it. The square root of 36 is a positive and a negative 6. So I'm going to break it up into 2 different solutions. I have the positive 6 and I have a negative 6. And now to solve for x, I'm going to subtract 1 on both sides. I have x equals 5 and I have x equals negative 7 as my solutions. So I want you to go ahead and pause this video here, and I want you to try the second equation on your own. Check your work. Your answer should come out to 12 and negative 2. So let's try this process again. Okay, so this equation on the left, my goal is to get whatever is being squared by itself. So first I'm going to add 3 to both sides. Okay. Then I have x minus 2 squared equals 64. So now that I have this by itself, in order to get rid of the square, I'm going to do the inverse, which is taking the square root of both sides. And the square root of a square, they basically are canceled out. I'm now left with x minus 2 equals, and what is the square root of 64? It is a perfect square, so it's equal to a positive 8, and it's equal to a negative 8, because when we take the square root, we have the positive solution and we have the negative solution. Now we go ahead and add 2 to both sides, and we get x equals 10, and we get x equals negative 6. Okay, go ahead and pause this video, and I want you to try doing the second side by yourself. Okay. So for the left side, if you followed the pattern that we did, you come down to x equals 1 and x equals negative 9. So we're going to go one step harder, you'll see. So I'm going to do the left side again. So my first step is still going to be to move the 4 to the other side by adding 4 to both sides. And I have 1/2 x plus 3 squared equals 24. Now I need to move the 1/2 to the other side. How do I move the 1/2? By multiplying by the reciprocal. Because when I multiply by the reciprocal, these divide to 1. So then I have x plus 3 squared equals 48. Now I can take the square root of both sides. Now, I cannot take the square root of 48. It does not have a perfect square, but I can break it up into numbers that I can take the square root of. So I think about perfect squares that I will be able to take the square root of, and 48 can break up into 16 times 3. Now remember, if you don't see the perfect squares right away, you can do the factor tree, okay? So 16 and 3, because I can take the square root of 16. So the square root of 16, I'm going to pull it out on the outside and put x plus 3 equals a positive, and a negative 4 square roots of 3. So I still have one more step. I still need to subtract this 3 from both sides. And I'm going to write it in front of the plus and the minus. Now, because I couldn't take the perfect square root of it, I went ahead and wrote this as 1, but it has a plus or minus, so you might have to break this up into the positive solution and your negative solution. Okay? Now go ahead and pause this video and try the left side on your own. Okay? So go ahead and check your answer here and see if you did the steps correctly. Okay? We have one more problem we're going to work on. So pause this video here if you need to look at it, but we're going to do one more together. So again, I'm going to do the one on the left side. So this time my first step is to subtract 7 from both sides. I have 1/3 x squared equals to 9. Okay? How do I move a fraction to the other side? I multiply by the reciprocal because these divide out to 1. So x squared equals 27. Then I take the square root of both sides. Well, I can't take the square root of 27. What numbers go into 27 that I can take the square root of? I have 9 times 3 because I can take the square root of 9 and I can write it in the front. And when I pull it out, I make sure that it's a positive or a negative 3 square roots of 3. Okay, now go ahead and try the second one on your own. Go ahead and check your answer and check your steps here. And this is the last question, so hopefully this video helped you solve quadratics by using square roots.